Okay, now we have finished the first content here. Okay, now the next one is the introduction to the Agile controller. So this is what the Agile controller can be provided. So they can control who access the network. Okay, can able to control where do the user access the network. They can know, okay, actually the user, right, just come from where, like company or home, the location, and when, working time or the non-working time, and the device you're going to use. So maybe the device is some of the device provided by the company, so company on device or VLAN, the employee are on device. And they also can able to detect whether the access terminal is the PC, okay, using the iOS terminal or the Android terminal. And how does this device access to the network? So they can able to monitor and control all those terminals from here, the Agile controller. And of course, for the Agile controller, also support the A02.1x authentication, port authentication, and also the MAC authentication. And here is the access mode for the Agile controller. So carry only the radius-based A02.1x, and the port authentication mode support all conditions in the access model. So you can see for the authorized, over here they can split into two different types. So you can authorize on the condition or on the result. So on the condition, they're using the user. Okay, the user, they can check using the account. So what is the user account? Identify and the organizer. Then the next one, based for the terminal, they can check. Right now, this terminal is using the what kind of the operating system, the type or what's a vendor. For the access mode, they can check right now the terminal connected using the wire or the wireless. And of course for the location, so they'll know right now the current connection is using what IP segment, okay, what kind of the access the device and the SSID. And the last one is time. So another type of the authorized when they're actually using the result, so they can using the ACL, bandwidth, VLAN, and do the authentication. Okay, of course the security group, dynamic ACL, and the radius. And here is content number 3. We're going to show you some of the configuration, how to using the Agile controller for the A02.1x. So this is a network example. You base on this one and do the explanation for all the configuration here. So we have the pre-authentication domain, post-authentication domain. We have 2, employee resource and also the guest resource. So and these 2 resources is totally isolated. Then we have 1 core router which is connected to the internet. The AC we're going to connect to the aggregate switch. And now we have 2 AP. So 1 AP we're going to connect to the employee and provide the wireless access, and another is belong to the guest. Okay, and here is the configuration roadmap. We'll start from the basic parameter. So first, we have to go to the AC here and set some parameter. Starting, we enter to the WLAN view using the command security profile. For first time create the secure profile, we need to give a name, okay, as usual. Inside the secure profile, because right now we want to running the A02.1x. So inside here, the command that we can use is security space WPA2 space .1x space followed by AES. So the guest, we're going to use the .1x encryption and also send to the employee also. So right now we already create 2 different security profile. One is for the guest and another is for the employee. Both of them using the 802.1x authentication. And secondly, configure the radio server. Okay, still the same. We right now inside the AC. We use a command called AAA inside the system view and try to go into the AAA view. Okay, over there we use a command authentication scheme. Then we give a name. So example right here I use the Huawei. Okay, then next. Inside the Huawei authentication the scheme, I'm going to enable it and using the authentication mode is radius. Then continue. I'll click from this authentication scheme. I go to the accounting scheme. I create one more name. Anyway, this Huawei and the previous Huawei is two different accounting scheme. Okay, so the previous one I named the authentication scheme is using Huawei, and this one is accounting scheme by another Huawei here. Okay, so inside this accounting scheme, I'm using the accounting mode also is radius. So that means for all the authentication and also the accounting right now, all will depend on the radius server. I don't do the authentication on my AC here. Okay, all you're going to push to the radius. And we also can change the real time for the accounting here. Okay, after we configure the authentication scheme and also the accounting scheme, then the next step, we create a template. Okay, from the system, we'll be using a command radio server template followed by the name. You can use any name from here. So same again, I use the default one, Huawei. So inside this radio server template, you need to tell to the template for the radio server authentication, you're going to point to which IP address and what is the port number. So right here, you're going to use the radio server when they want to do the authentication. I'm going to send to this 100.254.1.100 address, and the port number is 1812. When doing the accounting, I will use the same IP address but different port number. The port number I use 1813. Okay, don't forget about the share key. Okay, the share key I'm going to using the admin at 123. Then followed by the command undo radio server username domain include. Okay, click from here. The next one on the system view, we use the command radio server authorization. So when I want to pair with the radio server, I also need to allow the radio server pair with my current AC. So that means as long as the server is below to 10.254.1.100 with the share key is the cipher admin at 123, it will be allowed. Then the next here is create a domain. So this domain account you can create inside the AAA only. We enter to the AAA using the command called domain. Just give the name for this domain. Okay, right now I use the same again. Okay, Huawei. So right now I is inside the Huawei domain account. So who using this domain, it will go to the authentication scheme Huawei, accounting scheme Huawei, and the radius server also is Huawei. So this is why we create this now. Okay, and don't forget, go to the system view and enable this. Okay, the .1x access profile. Okay, then give the name. Here will be almost the last here to configure the radius server. So we already do the accounting authentication. So now we need to return back to the system view using command authentication profile name Huawei. Okay, this one can be the name that you create. And I'm using the command just now, .1x access profile. I select Huawei. And this one, you're going to use the same scheme that we create. Okay, Huawei, accounting, Huawei radio server, the server 1. Then the last one is apply the authentication profile to the VIP. So right here, I create one VIP. Okay, this one is for my the network device on the guest network. So this guest network, we're going to use the authentication profile Huawei, and this one will be same to the employee also. So these two SSID, we're using the same authentication method. So I don't care right now you connect to the guest and the employee. So when you connect to these two SSID, it will redirect you to do the authentication to the Radius server. Then here is some of the example to configure the pre-authentication domain. So right here, they're actually using the ACL 6001. So anyway, the first command over here is just optional. Okay, so you can actually put the description over here to tell you what is this ACL for. Okay, you can name this one as anything that you want. But the most important here will be the rule. Over here, the rule is allow you to configure the permit based on the IP, the protocol, the destination IP address, and also the port number that you're going to select. Okay, right here, they're using the rule number 1. I'm going to allow the traffic go to the destination 10.254.1.100. So this .100 is actually pointing to the Radius server. And the rule number 3, they're going to configure one more 101. They connect to maybe is the DHCP server and .200. So this is for the DNS. So this always we have to configure, and the rest one we're going to deny. Why we're going to do this one, right? Because this rule later on we're going to buy for those of the accounting or authentication the Radius. Okay, so this kind of Radius packet they only can send to this destination. It's not allowed to go anywhere else with control traffic. So that's why you can see the rule number 7 here. They're going to deny all the traffic. They can't go anywhere except go to the Radius server, the DHCP server, DNS server. Except these 3 traffic for the Radius. Okay, now they go back to the system wheel using free rule template. Just give a name there. Then inside this free rule template, I will use the ACL 6001. Okay, don't forget about the employee network and also the guest network. When we create these 2 different SSID, we know they actually belong to 2 different segments. And you might not want allow both of them can able to communicate with each other. So that's why we are putting certain rule over here. The rule number 1, deny the IP destination to 10.1.11.0, followed by the wildcard bit. So that means they try to prevent the employee to access the guest resource. Okay, except for the guest network, the employee network can go anywhere. You can see the last rule over here, the rule number 5, permit IP. This means as long as it's not within the range of 10.1.11.0 or maybe 10.1.12.0, you are allowed to go anywhere. So this one will be the same to the guest also. So the guest basically will not allow the guest to access to the employee resource. So we're going to filter in these places because these 2 range of the network segment is already used by the employee, so the guests have no authorized to access. But the rest of the destinations is allowed.